He has returned alive? Did you actually bring a red dragon's head?
Yes, I did.
You did? But no one could kill a dragon. You must be the genuine Avatar.
Lambert, he's obviously working with the enemy to fool us. No one could kill a red dragon. It's impossible. They can kill you with one glare from their eyes. Haven't you heard? I want no part of this.
Say what you will, but he has proven himself a hero. Enter, Avatar, for I believe. Maybe I am a trusting fool, but we need your help. Both my brother Renauld and my commander have been gone for some time now. I suspect Commander Hayes may have wisely fled Valoria when the demons came, but my brother was foolhardy and would never have left without me. I fear he is in trouble. Have you seen him, Avatar?
I am sad to say that I have seen your brother. He was wounded while fighting against the evil creatures that roam here, and I was unable to save him. He died as a warrior. His last words bade me bring you this shield.
No. My brother.
You think that the demons will allow themselves to be defeated by us? Ha!
I'm here to help you defeat the demons.
You don't understand. Those demons are invincible. I don't care how strong you are, you can't beat them. Many knights have tried and they all died horribly. I'm not gonna face them. I just want out of here. We've been protecting the Dagger of Valor from those demons for years. And for what? We should just give them the sigil, and maybe we'd at least survive.
Certainly we can combine our efforts to defeat these demons.
You don't seem to understand. It is hopeless against them. Our greatest fighter, Commander Hayes, has already fled the certain death that awaits us here. If we do not follow him, we are all destined to die here, and there is nothing we can do about it. If you're smart, you'll find a good place to hide in case those demons show up around here. Better yet, if you want to help us, get us out of here.
Your mind has been swayed by dark forces, Sir Knight.
No, it hasn't. You just don't know what you're talking about. Believe me, I've seen what those demons can do, and I'm telling you that they can't be defeated. It's hopeless. Please don't try to get me out there, please.
What demons are you talking about?
The demons that have taken over. The demons that won our Dagger of Valor, that's who.
What is the Dagger of Valor?
It's our Sigil of Valor. The demons won it for some reason. I don't know why. it would probably be best for us to just go ahead and give it to them. Maybe then they'd go away and leave us alone.
Where is this dagger?
It's protected within the volcano, and only a Valorian knight has the power to call it out, which is why the demons need us. They know it represents virtue, and they hate that. They won't stop until they get it.
I obviously can't allay your fears, Sir Knight. Farewell.
You startled me. Who are you? Why are you here? Please, don't hurt us.
What is your name, my lady?
My name is Lizelle. Please, my husband is very ill. Don't hurt us.
It's all right. I'm the Avatar. I'm here to help.
Really? The Avatar? Oh, I've heard about you. Oh, thank heavens you've come. We are in a terrible plight. My husband is very ill, and I'm afraid he will soon die. There are demons threatening the fortress. The knights can do nothing to help us, and I feel that all will soon be lost.
Please tell me about your husband.
Oh, it's terrible. He was attacked by a demon and is now very sick. I just don't know what to do. Oh, please help. Please help him, Avatar.
Where was your husband when he was attacked?
Oh, I'm not sure. He was outside of the volcano.
Goodbye.
Who's there?
It is I, my lord, the Avatar.
I am relieved to see you, Avatar.
Who are you, my lord?
I am Meranthon. I once traveled with an order of mages so that I may learn the secret of defeating the demons. I brought back with me the Tome of Demonology, but it was lost when I was attacked.
You were attacked?
I was ambushed by a terrible creature that lives in the glade. I tried to flee, but was attacked near the glade at the bottom of the volcano on the east side of the island. This is where I lost the tome. I was barely able to make it back here with my life. I had hoped to go back and retrieve the tome, but it is too dangerous for me. I couldn't face that demon spawn again. I believe you could do it. Seek this holy book. Its secrets are sealed to all but he who is destined to destroy the demon triumvirate. We can only hope that is you, Avatar.
Yes, I will seek the book.
Thank you. May the virtues be with you, Avatar.
Greetings there, Avatar. I understand that you've come here to help us. We sure do appreciate it. I'd be right there with you if I was a few years younger. Good luck to you, my boy. Would you like to take a look at my wares? I can train you as well, if you'd like.
I would like some training.
It'll be 2,000 gold. I may be old, but I wager I've still got some skills you haven't seen.
Sounds fair to me.
Very well, let's begin. This shot that I'm going to show you is a side stroke to the ribs. If your opponent's guard is up high on his left side, you can do a great deal of damage with this shot. You learn quickly, Avatar. I hope the training helps you in your travels. Greetings there, Avatar. I'd be right there with you if I was... Would you like to take a look at my wares?
Yes, I'm interested in your wares.
Anything else, then?
No, thank you. I'll be going now.
Art thou the Avatar? What irony. The Knight of Britannia in the abode of one whose courage has faded in the face of adversity.
Who are you?
My name is Artos. I was once counted among the most valorous of knights. There was a time when I never felt fear in battle, when I always emerged in triumph. Alas, those days are but a memory.
Who were you doing battle against?
We were bested by the demons that even now plague Valoria. Through defeat, my valor has been stripped away and my honor forsaken.
What has befallen you, friend?
Fear, sir. It paralyzed me, then caused me to flee the battle. In doing so, I left my companions to die alone and in agony. Surely you understand why I am so overcome with shame over what I have done.
I will leave you to your solitude.
Where is he? Where is Eris?
I am here!
Do what you have promised, Eris, and I will let you live.
Here it is! Here is the sigil, now go! Do with it what you will, but keep your end of the deal and leave us now. I have fulfilled my part.
I did not believe it would be so easy, but you, Eris, are a fool. Where are your heroes now, Valorian knights? Remain cowering in your burrows, for I and my brothers now possess your treasured sigil of valor.
Avatar, you must help me. He is dying.
Lizelle, you're the healer. You can help him.
No, don't you understand? I can't do that anymore. I killed the last man that I worked on. I don't want to kill my husband, too.
You didn't kill that man, Lizelle. He just died. I know that it hurts, but you can't save everyone. More importantly, you can't let one failure shatter your confidence. Don't be afraid, Lizelle. You can do it.
Please, Avatar. This man is my husband. I cannot bear to hurt him. You have healing magic. Please, will you try to help him?
I will try.
No, I must do something. I can't bear to watch him suffer. He is healing! Oh, thank you, Avatar, for convincing me not to renounce my courage. But I fear that unless the demons are slain, my work here will never cease. Go in luck, Avatar.
I felt myself slipping away despite her efforts. Thank you, Avatar, for giving her the strength and courage to save me.
You may think you have won here, but let me remind you that my power is greater than yours. All the good you do can be just as easily undone. See for yourself, Avatar, and learn.
Merenthon.
Come with me, Sir Artos. I have faith in your ability, and I need you to help me fight the demons.
I would not be the valued companion you seek, but rather a burden, for my heart is filled with fear.
Everyone feels fear. It is normal to fear, but it is cowardice not to face that fear.
Enough.
You're nothing but a coward.
Now you anger me.
Do not crumble, Sir Artos. Use your anger against those who have taken your honor and your faith. Help me to defeat the demons, and you will defeat your own demons as well. Otherwise, wallow in your shame and cowardice.
Desist! You have enraged me to the point that I now must fight. I will prove you wrong, Avatar, but do not think we are finished. No one calls me a coward without paying the price.
I will help you, but do not forget that we still need another person to fight the third demon.
How can I further assist you, Avatar?
You are a brave man, and I must appeal to you to join me in fighting the demon triumvirate.
Unlike my brother, I am no soldier, but rather a common man. I cannot help you.
On the contrary, soldier, I see that you are well equipped for battle.
But I have not the necessary skill.
Dear brother, listen to me.
What is this? What assails my eyes and ears?
It is me, your own kin.
Dear brother, how I have missed you. What will you have of me, Renauld?
Listen to me, Lambert. Heroism comes not from a weapon, but from the heart. I know your heart, brother, and it is the heart of a hero. You can overcome these odds, brother, and defeat those who have taken my life. I ask you now, avenge me, brother.
Had I not seen it for myself, I would never have believed it. Avatar, I tell you, now I pledge on my honor and the honor of my dear brother that I will face this evil with you. I will meet the demon who lives in the southwest, while you confront the demon who has taken the shrine.
Avatar, does thou now command? Keep the demon that awaits me.
Speak now the mantra of valor. Avatar, thou hast earned an advancement.
How did it go?
Fine. The shrine's been cleansed.
Good. We're almost there. You've only got one more shrine left to cleanse.
Yes, but how do I get to it? The only way to get to the Shrine of Spirituality is through a moon gate, and I can't use that moon gate until I cleanse the shrine.
Well, word is out that Lord British wants to see you. Why don't you go talk to him? Maybe he'll have a suggestion for you. Look, I know that this is a bad time, but I need to ask you something. About us.
What do you need to ask me?
Like I said, I know that this isn't the best time, but I just want to know what's going to happen once this is over.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not like you have a history of sticking around this place for very long. I just want to know if there's going to be something between us once you've gotten rid of the Guardian. I can handle whatever happens, I just want to know what to expect.
Raven, I've got to be honest. I don't know what's going to happen.
I appreciate your honesty, Avatar. You could have just told me something to make me happy. But I'd rather know that you respect me enough to tell me the truth, not just say something that you think I want to hear. All right, I guess we'll just see what happens and try to figure it out then. As for now, I guess we need to get you to Britain. Where would you like to go?
Britain.
Bring out your donations!
Oh, hello there.
Greetings, Avatar. Good day. Keep to yourself now.
Thank the virtues that you're here. Lord British read this note that was meant for you. He left to confront Blackthorn in the Abyss. I tried to talk him out of it. I tried to tell him that it was your job to handle things like this, but he wouldn't listen. He just said that it was time to take a stand himself. He is the king. He shouldn't be foolishly risking his life like this.
Good day, Avatar.
Hello, Avatar. I hope that you're doing well.
What are you playing?
It's a song called Stones. Iolo wrote it years ago. Sometimes it seems that you can't go anywhere in Britannia without hearing it. I'm surprised that you've never heard it before.
May I try to play a bit?
Certainly. Here, just take the sheet music and place it on the harpsichord so it's easy to read. Now, just use the harpsichord to let the music flow out of you.
Bring out your donations!
Hey there, handsome. So where are we off to now?
I need to find Lord British. He's in the Abyss.
The Abyss, huh? That's gonna be tough.
What do you mean?
I don't know how to get there. You know, every city of virtue has its opposite dungeon. Since the Abyss is the opposite of spirituality, maybe we should go to Skara Brae and see if we can find a way to the Abyss from there.
All right, let's go.
All right, Skara Brae it is.
Hello, Avatar. It's Shamino again.
Hello, friend. So tell me, how did you get trapped in the spirit realm?
As I told you, I undertook a spiritual quest to learn more about the columns that are corrupting Britannia. The Guardian learned of my quest and cast a spell that has kept me from returning to my body. I need you to break that spell so I may return to Britannia.
What do I need to do?
I need for you to perform a ritual that will open the barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds. This ritual requires the Bell of Courage, Book of Truth, and Candle of Love. I am very weary. The longer I am away from the physical world, the more difficult it is to stay in touch with it. Listen carefully. If you are to free me from this world, you must enter into the Well of Souls on the Isle of Skara Brae. There you will find my body. In order to gain entry to the well, you must find an Ankh of Spirituality. I know that Lord British used to keep one in his castle. I've heard that he keeps the Ankh in a safe place in his bedroom. I will explain the ritual to you once you've retrieved the 3 items. Look for them in their traditional homes of Serpent's Hole, Empeth Abbey, and the Lyceum. Goodbye, Avatar. I knew that you would make it. Please hurry. The ethereal link between my astral being and body is growing weaker. If you don't re-establish the link, I will be lost forever.
Tell me what I need to do.
First, you must consult the sacred statue here on the Isle of Skara Brae. The statue will tell you the mantra of spirituality. Once you have learned the mantra, come back here and perform the ritual of return. The ritual is simple. Set the bell, book, and candle around me in a triangle. Then, open the book and read the passage that you find therein. Light the candle and ring the bell. Once you have done that, speak the mantra of spirituality. Once the sacred mantra has been spoken, I will be brought back into the physical world.
Greetings, worthy Avatar. I am the ever-watchful sentinel of Skara Brae. Prior to the destruction brought by the columns, it was I who watched over and protected the island of Skara Brae and its people. I know you to be worthy and good. Although I no longer can protect this place, I see all that happens. How may I serve you, worthy Avatar?
What happened to Skara Brae?
The Guardian loosed his anger and laid waste to Skara Brae.
What can you tell me of the Temple of Souls?
The Temple of Souls is a portal to the Netherworld. There, spirits roam, searching for what they lost in life.
Do you know anything about Shamano?
I know Shamano well, for he is the champion of spirituality. I know that Shamano entered into the Temple of Souls some years ago, and has not emerged. I know that he is in danger, but from what I cannot say. You must hurry to him, Avatar. His life force is weakening.
My thanks to you. I must leave now.
Before you continue on your quest, Avatar, stand in the palm of my hand and there receive a blessing. You stand in the palm of my hand and are a worthy hero. Therefore, before you go, receive from me this blessing, the mantra of spirituality. Om. Use the mantra well and wisely, and may you always walk with spirituality.
Please, can you help me find my way out of this place?
What is your name?
In life, my name was Kalen.
Why are you here?
I don't know. I sensed that I was sent here to find something that I lost or learn something that I didn't know. It's odd and difficult to explain, but I have been wandering here for a very long time, searching for a way out.
What did you do in life?
I was a thief, but it was okay because I only stole from people who could afford it. It's okay to steal from the rich. It doesn't hurt anyone. Besides, I had to feed my children.
That's not true. Stealing is wrong.
How is it wrong?
You must be responsible for yourself, not prey on others.
Well, I realize that, I guess. It's just that, well, life is very difficult, and this was the easiest way for me.
You're teaching your children to become criminals.
Oh, I've never really thought of that. I wouldn't want my children to turn out like I did. I always wanted better for them.
For one thing, you're lying to yourself.
You're right. I think I've known this all along, but didn't want to admit it to myself. Perhaps that is why I was always afraid to consult the Book of Truth. I didn't want to know the truth.
I'm glad that you've come around.
Yes, I feel that my search is at an end.
Very well then. Goodbye.
Thank you. I can finally ascend from this place. Goodbye.
Are you filled with grief? Is that why you roam amongst the lost souls?
Why do you grieve, sad spirit?
I grieve because I lost my baby girl. I neglected her when she was alive. I felt not love for her and cared only for my pleasure. When she died due to my neglect, I was overwrought with grief. And I didn't know why I was so saddened. Finally, in despair, I took my own life. And yet I grieve. And with that grief remains the riddle. Why do I grieve? Why am I so sad? I do not understand. All that I know is that I cannot leave the place that torments me so.
Perhaps you grieve because you loved your daughter.
Love? What's love? Why do people talk of it? Tell me what love is.
I can't tell you what love is, but perhaps your baby could.
How can a baby show me what love is?
I'll bring her to you and then you'll see.
Yes, please bring me my baby. I want to have her back.
Don't hurt me!
Why would I want to hurt you?
Because I'm not a warrior like the rest of the boys. I never wanted to be a warrior. I wanted to go to Moonglow and study magic. So the other boys bullied me and hurt me. I spent all of my life afraid, and it is no better here.
Fear not. I'm a friend.
A friend? I don't believe you. I've never had a friend before because I didn't want to be a warrior. They said that I was a coward. And what's the use in being brave anyway? I've seen brave boys go off to their home gang before and never come back. That's why when I was sent on my home gang, I fled the village and never went back.
Where is your village?
It's just to the northwest of you.
What is a home gang?
It's a stupid test of bravery that's supposed to mark a boy's transition into manhood. Each boy's home gang is different. Mine was particularly dangerous, so when I was sent off, I just ran away. I didn't want to go back, and I don't understand what's so important about courage. I just left and tried to go to Moonglow.
How did you die?
I was attacked and killed by wolves on my way to Moonglow.
Farewell.
Farewell.
Hello? Nice one.
If I drink anymore,
Don't hurt me!
I'm the Avatar.
Oh, wonderful.
Why would I want to?
Because I'm not a war. So the other boys.
Fear not.
A friend. And what's he? That's why.
Where is your village?
It's just to the north.
Farewell.
Farewell.
I was beginning to fear that I wasn't going to make it back into this world. I need to tell you some important information that I learned about the Guardian and about Lord British while I was on my spirit quest.
What about the Guardian?
This is troubling news, friend, and I beg you to listen with an open mind. The Guardian is not simply some evil being from out of the wastes of the void. He's specifically tied to Britannia and to you.
Tied to me? What exactly are you trying to say?
The Guardian is part of you, or at least he was once part of you. The Guardian is a result of what happened when you became the Avatar. The evil side of you was stripped away, and eventually it coalesced into the Guardian.
So you're telling me that the Guardian is my evil twin?
I wouldn't say that he's your twin, but he is. or was, a part of you.
How can that be true?
I know that it's not a pleasant idea, but think about it. When you became the Avatar, the evil side of you was stripped away. All of that negative energy had to go somewhere, didn't it? This isn't a verdict against you, Avatar. If anything, it's a validation of your being the Avatar, or a fault in the concept of a person being all things good to a people. In any case, the Guardian is out there, and he needs to be defeated. Then there's the matter of where Lord British has gone.
What do you need to tell me about Lord British?
Lord British has gone off to the Abyss to confront Blackthorn. This is the first time that the old fellow has left his castle in years, and I think what he's doing is very dangerous.
Well, don't worry. I'll follow him and make sure that no harm comes to him.
There is, however, one problem with that. When Lord British used the gate ritual to travel to the Abyss, he sealed it off to anyone else. I only know of one way to defeat the gate ritual that Lord British performed, but I'm not certain that we should use it.
I'll use the gate ritual myself.
It won't work, Avatar. You don't have that strength of magic. Only one thing that I know of does, and I don't know that it should be used.
Are there any physical means to get around the ritual?
Unfortunately, no. There's only one way that I know to defeat the ritual, and I am loath to use it.
How can we defeat Lord British's ritual?
The gate ritual sealed the Abyss to beings who live outside of it. If you could summon a creature native to the Abyss that possesses magic, that creature should be able to defeat the ritual. But that means summoning a great demon. Is it right that we use such a force of evil, even if it aids us in our quest?
We may do as we please, so long as no others are harmed by our actions. I'll summon this creature, but we'll be sure to bind it so that it can't get free and harm anyone.
Who are you? Who has summoned me here? Why have you disturbed me?
Please forgive me for disturbing your rest, but I must beg a favor.
What? The Avatar? You're the one who caused Pyros to destroy me.
Have you lost your mind? We need his help. You can't anger him like that.
You're right. I should be more tactful.
Yes, you should. Now try again.
Please forgive me for disturbing your rest, Malkir, but I must beg a favor.
Why would I want to help you? You are the person responsible for my death and the torture that I've endured since. If it were within my power, I would strike you down where you stand.
Torture? What torture have you suffered?
Do you think that Pyros flames stopped burning me once my body was dead? Well, they haven't. I've been burning in those flames from the moment that Pyros dispatched me. Since that time, the only thing that I've felt aside from the flames is my hatred of you. And now, you want me to help you?
Good spirit, you burn not from Pyros' flames, but from your own hatred of the Avatar.
Who are you? What do you know of me and my pain?
Go on, Shamino, talk to him.
Thank you. Malkir, I do not know you, but I know a great deal of spirituality in the ethereal world. I know that Pyros' flames cannot reach you in that world. The flame that burns you comes not from Pyros, but from your hatred of the Avatar. Release that anger, and you will be freed of your pain.
I can feel a strong knowledge of spirituality within you. Perhaps you're right, but how do I free myself of the hate that has sustained me for so long?
Help us. Give us the ritual that will summon Pyros. In doing so, your act of forgiveness will free you of your hatred and pain.
I see the truth in your words. Very well. I will help you. If you wish to summon Pyros, do the following, and do not deviate one bit from what I tell you. Place a demon skull, sulfurous ash, spider silk, and black rock into the center of a pentagram. After this is done, place a red candle in the center of the pentagram and light it. The reagents will be consumed and Pyros will appear.
Thank you, gentle spirit.
No. My thanks go to you. Already I feel the flames subside as the hate leaves me. Finally I am at peace. Farewell.
Very well. You know the ritual, but it must be cast from the Isle of the Avatar, and then only near the lost entrance to the dungeon. You have it within yourself to find the isle, my friend. Just look deeply within yourself, and you'll find the island.
My baby, you have my baby girl. Oh my goodness, I am so happy to have her again and to hold her again. Why didn't I feel this way when we both lived? Oh, to feel her spirit so close to mine. To hold her to me. A void has been filled. I feel whole now. Oh, thank you, kind sir.
What you feel is love.
I never felt this when I was alive. I never understood it until I lost my baby and you brought her back to me. Now I understand the reverence that the people gave to the candle of love.
Well, I'm very happy for you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Now I can finally leave this place.
Hello? Nice weather. Good day, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm far too busy to chat right now.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Don't hurt me!
Did you know that your village was destroyed by goblins?
What?
Your village was destroyed by goblins. Had you stolen their totem, like you were sent to do, the goblins would not have attacked your village.
Did anyone survive?
No.
All of this time I thought myself so superior. Now everyone is dead because of me. Had I not been afraid, the village would have been spared. I should have been brave enough to go through with my home gang. I now understand why I couldn't leave this place. I was there to finally learn the lesson that I could not learn in life. Oh, if I were alive, I would make the pilgrimage to the Bell of Courage like so many of my village did.
You know where the Bell of Courage is?
Yes, it's in the sunken ruins of Serpent's Hole, just southeast of the coast of Trinzy. You should go there and see it sometime. I must ascend from this place now and rest. If you go, beware. An evil archmage is said to lurk there. Thank you, and farewell.
May blessings be upon you, worthy Avatar.
To get to the Abyss, we must go to the Isle of the Avatar. Where would you like to go?
Britain.